Jesus. My stomach is doing topsy-turvies. All right, we're going to finish this project up today. We're down to really, at this point, just highlights. All the primary details were done yesterday. Washes were applied and allowed to settle at the end of the session. So at this point, we're really just doing final detailing and highlights. Overall, I'm really pleased with the way this project looks. I think these guys really pop. And I'm pretty sure that the client's going to be super happy. This time, I think they look really good. So just time for some final highlights and some finishing touches, that sort of thing. Okay. Let's see how these leathers settled, because that's really, yeah, those look pretty nice and naturally shaded. All right, so we're going to highlight the leathers, maybe the whites, probably not the blacks for the most part. The blacks were highlighted with a dry brushing style, which looks really good and really natural, and I don't feel the need to do a lot of heavy brush work. I'm not a big fan of that. We may do a transfer on his right shoulder pad. That would be an okay thing. Doesn't look like there's really any room for OSL. I need to do a little effect on his claws. I could do some OSL there, but the shade, the blue really looked good, so I think just some white lightning. All right, so let's flesh it out. Some white lightning on the claws. We're going to make a leather highlight. We might use, I don't think about mahogany. I think like a distressed leather will look good there. We're definitely going to highlight some of the metals. Plate metal is a pretty good highlight for that, but pure silver would be even better if I can find that. And what else? Oh, the black. Yeah, on these yellow areas, I want to do some caution striping. And then I guess if time allows, purity seals look pretty good. I don't think we need anything else there. The black wash is a little heavy at his leg. I don't know why that was. Let's target that with a little bit of gloss or anti-shine. Let's see if that takes care of it. If it doesn't, we may have to touch that area up. We'll let that cure. See what that does. Let's start with the black industrial striping. And let's bring up the podcast from yesterday and finish that out.
If you start looking through them, each one is engraved with astronomical symbols and numbers in giant, for those of you who speak giant. You take a second to go through them. They're numbered 1 through 72. The chest under the table. Roll perception to see if it's trapped. I'm assuming you're just going to pop open a chest. It's not trapped, don't worry. It contains 20 bars of pure silver. Ooh. They weigh about 100 pounds each.
Whoa, wow.
Anybody ever praise?
I do. I think I've got a, but yes, I do. I have a semi-decent appraise. That's 18.
That's for you. Your eyes like dollar signs come out like a Looney Tunes cartoon. 20 bars of pure silver, 100 pounds each, worth 10,000 gold pieces.
Oh yeah, that's.
And that,
Throw in the bag.
is what you see.
I've always said a wondrous item was worth about 20 pure bars of silver.
Always, yeah.
Yep. The old saying
Always
goes,
said that.
I always have.
Here we say.
We almost got it put up. We almost made a sign put on the wall of the office.
Yeah, I was cross stitching just to have that hoop on our. But then it was such a cliche that it's like we don't want to seem corny.
Yeah, but then COVID. We put a blanket on the temple.
Can I just also say?
It's like a hand towel.
Retroactively, the stinking cloud image you found was really cool because it had this skull built into the smoke that was neat and these particle effects.
Great graphics.
I've had some time.
Troy, I can't help but notice that from where I'm standing on the map, I'm looking directly up to this passageway to the north.
Oh.
And I do have 120 feet direct vision.
Interesting.
Well, son of a Vondruk. Let me tell you what you see. You look up there, and you see that the hall ends.
Yeah, I think in retrospect, those were
10,
copper.
15, 20, 25, they're about 60, 70 feet or so from the beginning of this corridor. It just ends in a wall and looks like it splits off again to the east and the west.
Interesting. Dogriff looks away from the pure silver bars to Nestor, and he's just like, if that's what they got in the front room, what do you think they got inside? It's tantalizing, isn't it? Just the possibilities. It is.
Do we think this is the front room? This isn't, or is this some sort of like side door?
Have to be semantics, Metro.
No, but it's
just making a comment on the bar.
You see a couple of teenagers come around the corner. Guys, the front door is on the other side.
Yeah.
You
This is
can't
for
check
countries
it.
only.
You really can't.
We can't have you coming in this way.
It's a staff entrance. I'm so sorry. Can you get around?
The premier heroes fighting these low CR creatures. This way.
Can you guys fly?
Yeah, no, I asked because I want to know what we're walking into. Are we walking into like the front defenses, or do we sneak in through? Is this like the actual like mini smithy?
We didn't even have a combo up top. We went straight in through these doors. We could have gone in through the air vent exhaust places. We went in. We made decisions. There at least were several entrances to this place. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
So getting
It's funny you say that. What other entrances?
I mean, I imagine
the
if we
tunnel
had
was
flown,
brutal.
if we had we could have flown around the perimeter of this thing. I imagine and looked for other places.
Yeah.
There weren't any right here, obviously, but yeah, the tunnel was the only one that I saw outside.
Yeah, but you wisely knew that they had they were firing at you. There's no reason to think there's defenses. They got flying creatures. I think that you made
And there might be
the same decision your heroes would have made.
people might be expected to arrive like from up top. Like there might be like a main entrance to the castle atop this chunk of land that it flies on.
A helipad.
Yeah. Oh, this is what I can't understand. It's like, are we in the castle? I think we're underneath the castle. I think we're in the castle. Are we not in the castle? Is the castle like some distance away? This is impossible to wrap our head around because it was like this huge landmass that we were fighting just underneath the level of the castle. I was having a hard time understanding what we were looking for.
So the tunnel, because remember how I said that I think a few episodes ago that it was like rocky base, castle, like it sits flush against the rocky base. The tunnel that leading up to these doors was kind of built into the rocky base. So it's hard to tell if you are actually in the castle proper or if you are beneath the castle.
But we're definitely the castle isn't, we can't be under the castle. We're either under the castle or in it.
Yeah, you're either under
It's not like further away.
No,
We're not moving toward it.
Yeah, no, because when you look up, the walls of the castle were right there. You're either under it or in it. You just, without looking at the blueprints, it's hard to tell exactly where you are.
So, yeah, if we're not in the castle proper, we're in the basements or something.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Tunnels. All right. Someone should look at these. Someone who can read should look at these plaques.
Yeah, 1 through 72.
Oh, yeah. What about them?
Yeah, just they have. Who reads Giant?
We all do.
You all read Giant, yeah. So, Giant numbers 1 through 72. And astronomical symbols engraved all over the different. I don't know if anybody has any sort of training in astronomy. I don't think so. So nothing is really like piecing it together. The number 72 doesn't ring a bell. But it's very particular, and there's none missing. You can go through it. 1, 2, 3, 4. All 72 are there. They're heavy. They're 30 pounds each.
Is there a check we could roll on the astronomy? What would that be?
Now it's nature.
I have nature.
Yeah, no, I would say nature. I would even say arcana, maybe.
All right, oral arcana.
For the nature, I get a 21.
For the arcana, I got a 20.
I got a 32 Arcana.
Okay. I can tell you, if you sit there and really study them and think about that the symbols are related to the stars appearing in the skies of Galarian near the horizon.
Near the horizon.
This is like some sort of navigation tool or something, like something, a sort of celestial objects to aim towards for the castle itself.
Why don't we take them? Then they will know.
Yeah, then they'll be fucked, won't they?
Which way's north?
Throw them in the fire.
Really, it's the
Set the kiln going. Burn them. Yeah.
The kiln explodes again. Why'd you open it again?
Are they worth anything?
Yeah. You think you could probably sell these? This is just like a giant relic. You know, these aren't like artifacts, but they would have value to collectors. You can give me a praise for that.
I'll do that. Ooh, 20.
20, John. I can tell you they are worth.
I just love the idea that what we're thinking of is selling these to collectors. Like, that's what we're thinking.
Where did you find that? Well, my parents are cleaning out the attic.
when we bring this castle down, or at least convert it to non-evil usage.
Hopefully we'll bring it down right into the middle of the taping of Antiques Roadshow.
Exactly.
I'll read straight out of the book here because I think it's interesting, especially based on this conversation. They're worth 150 gold pieces each in raw materials alone, or up to 5 times that to a collector of cloud giant curios. I'm telling you, this guy thought of everything.
Okay, so I guess is it curios, or I wonder if we're gonna have to fly the castle at some point. Yeah, okay, that would be kind of cool if it was like we could hold on navigation, chart the course.
If you want to hold on to them. Hey, you guys are okay with all this weight, because these things are going to add up.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know.
It's a bag of holding is not unlimited. I mean, it has a
That's
but it's a giant bag of holding.
And we did clear out a lot of it when we went to.
Nothing to worry about. Stop the show right now. Just something maybe. Who wants to volunteer to be on bag of holding duty just to kind of see where you're at? Everyone's pointing at Grant. So, as the resident giant, Sweetums, you will be in charge of that.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll hand wave it.
I thought you would.
Yeah, don't worry.
Don't worry. I thought about it. I'm going to hand wave it.
All right, so 72 30-pound blocks we throw into the bag, and let's just keep moving. Yeah, we're good.
Throw it on your shoulders, strap it to your back, and you keep walking.
And then double move, acrobatics check, sneak attack.
Cartwheel up, put it in his clothes.
Let's go.
72. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Troy just knocked a
Try to
set down.
Well, it's all right. We'll never use you again. What do you want to do?
Dogwraith is happy to go ahead if that's what everybody wants, and begin exploring again. Towards this corridor to the north.
That is literally a ton. It's a ton of plates down the bag of holding.
It's no big deal.
No big deal.
All right, I'm going forward.
Going forward.
If I get stuck up there again, Metro, switch places with me.
I can only do that twice, 2 times a day.
What? That is a 29 perception for traps on the floor.
Okay.
As I'm walking along.
You look ahead as you're walking along, or roll that all the way to the wall. You don't see anything.
Okay.
You also don't hear anything.
Okay, he comes up to the corner and will stealth check, peek around the corner. That is a 25.
Okay. You see the corridor extends to the west and to the east.
Okay. Any further? I can see 60 feet.
I haven't revealed a note that you don't. There's no change.
Okay, so it's just still corridor.
I'll go ahead and reveal more to you just for your own edification.
All right.
But yeah, just keep stretching in either direction. You don't see anything.
Metro will peek her head around both corners to see if she can see anything 120 feet away.
I thought you would. All right, so to the west, you see that the corridor ends and turns upward. Okay. And to the north, and then that's the east, right? And then to the west, it stretches and opens up into another room.
Dogwraith looks at Metra's look that says, "What do you think? The west?"
The west.
And Dogwraith nods. Step out. Perception check. Traps on the floor on the way. Over 40.
Okay, yeah, you don't see anything.
42. Okay. It's going to keep walking. Before we go forward, sorry, that was a 35. I was giving my stealth roll for instead of my perception. So that was 35 perception, and then stealth is a 33.
Stealth is 33. Okay.
Yeah. He's going to
I definitely need some kind of silver color.
The fog of war me.
It's a little too close. Let me grab brighter metal. All right, this is polished silver Reaper, which I think is probably comparable to something like shining silver. We're going to try you out because I have several bottles of you. Yeah, it's pretty bright. It's definitely not bad. Fuck me, motherfucker.
Yeah, a little tough.
And so he'll get as close to this room as he can to, without being seen. Try to peek in. So okay, go further.
Nope, where you are, I can, if you go right there, that's where the turn is. So you get right up to the edge of the room and you see two things of interest. First, you see the room stretches to the south and continues on to the west. You also see to the northern part of the corridor a staircase leading up.
Oh, right. And now it looks like there's something on the map here along the eastern wall, right below Dogwraith. What does he see?
Sure is. You see a bunch of things, and then you see a cabinet. On the eastern wall of the room, there are an array of 3-foot wide ceramic tubes that run from floor to ceiling. And then on the western wall, where that little shelf is, you see several giant-sized cold weather outfits hanging from pegs in an open wardrobe.
Whoa, weird. Dogwraith.
And it's very warm the second you turn around the corner. The warmth is coming from the tubes.
What the
Check the pockets for change.
All right, quick perception for any sounds coming from around the corner or echoing down the stairs. That is a 33.
No sounds.
He's going to look back to Nestor and Metra and just give the nod to come to him. The coast is clear. And then he'll move into the room once everybody's up there.
You move into the room, and it's incredibly warm in here. The warmth is, like I said, emanating from these tubes on the east wall. And, yeah, spiral staircase leading up on the north part, and then these cold weather outfits, giant-sized, leading there. Something about cold and warm. You would think at high altitudes, it would be cold. You know, so maybe the cold weather outfits are there to protect them, and also this warm room is there. The altitude bothers people. These aren't like frost giants.
I guess, are these ceramic tubes just heating? Is it like steam in there or hot water heating? Hot oil? Interesting. Steam heat?
Yeah, the ceramics heat.
Can I go and touch one of the things without, get close to it to see if it's piping hot?
The closer you get, the warmer it is.
Yeah. Can I, Delbert, look around the corner here beyond the bookshelf? The same direction as the stairs, but seeing if there's anything around that corner.
Okay, you look around the corner. I mean, how cool is this? This production, it's just so different.
Terrifying.
You see that it, about 70 feet or so, about 60 feet, the extent of your vision, it ends and turns north.
Right. So, to the west, back to the east. I'm not ready to go upstairs yet.
Can we roll some sort of check on these tubes just to make sure they are what we think they are? I'll detect magic as well.
Okay. You detect magic throughout the room. There is faint magic emanating from the tubes, but nothing you can really get a grip on. However, you do detect magic coming from the jackets on the pegs. You hang out and really zone in. It's one jacket in particular.
I go to that jacket.
Go to that jacket. Keep looking. And finally, give me a perception check.
36.
You go to the jacket. Doesn't look different from any of the other ones. You start rifling around. And in one of the pockets is a badge.
Oh.
Badge is emanating magic. And the badge just has like images of like a cloud burst coming up and around. It's very ornate.
Spellcraft?
Yeah, give me a spellcraft.
22. No, 21.
21. You don't know.
Can I roll to 8?
You can
Or
roll
with
a
that,
fresh check, yeah.
Fresh check? Okay. I don't know either.
All right, I'll put it in my pocket. I'll check it tomorrow.
Try again.
Oh, wait a second.
Do you identify?
It is not in our list of consumable items that I wrote. So, I don't think we talked about it.
We did talk about it.
Definitely talked about it. Okay.
Check tomorrow.
Check again tomorrow.
I assume we did all that healing, by the way. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put myself up.
Yeah, put yourself at full. All right. To the west or to the east. Under the stairs. Or over where we came from. What do you think, Baron?
To the east.
Back to the east. All right. Slowly back up.
Baron is thinking, and it's mostly because they thought of everything. Troy said joyously. He's wondering if we should at least, throw a plank or something across the door we came in through. Because if it stands to reason that they can fly around and check different posts, it would just protect our rear, or at least give us some more time if someone tried to enter in from that way.
Yeah, but now they can come. I think they can come downstairs from this set of stairs, or
We're just vulnerable no matter where we are.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea, Baron. I just can't imagine what we could, a plank big enough to bar the door. I can't imagine it. How would you carry it? I'd be more afraid of a plank that big than any giant I could think of, to be honest.
So you want to head back to the east? Are you heading back stealthily?
Yeah, we could.
wait, you definitely that hallway to the north, underneath the staircase. Should we just take a look, make sure it's not just like a dead end?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I asked Barber. He said, "Go east, bro."
If it's just around, I thought that on the west side that ended. If there's something to check out around
There's
the
still
corner,
stuff to check out.
we should peek around this corner.
Metro will peek around this corner.
Okay. Dollars goes further. Is anybody else heading with there? Or you guys
Yeah,
staying back?
going up to.
We're basically there.
Unfortunately, at that moment,
Oh boy.
when the four of you
Well, I did not go there. What are you talking about? I was all the way to the east. I started walking back when Metro changed their mind.
were you waiting until I said that, or were you?
No, I literally, somebody else moved my pawn over there.
I moved his phone. Okay.
Yeah, I did not. I was like,
I saw your body go over there. So sadly, Baron is pot committed due to this trap that just went off.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding about the trap. I am kidding about it affecting Dalgrith. But at that moment, cold ice rains down upon Nestor, Metra, and Baron. Oh. Then we'll see you next week.
I knew it was coming.
Why'd you make it stop so
You're as cold as ice. You're as cold as ice. Cold-hearted bastard.
Willing to sacrifice our love.
There's a rain of ice in your heart.
How did that net? Yeah, that pretty much cleared it up.
At the beginning of the movie, we're going to have this guy that's like inspecting a baby. And the narrator's going to.
Okay, so I'm going to go on mute because I keep getting these violations from YouTube. So I'll be working. I'll just be on mute. And yeah, that's it.
to benefit from the reroll to hit, I decided to arm Tyler's with Lance talent for that extra punch against.
Moving on to the leathers.
It was here that I was able to make my first.
I'm going to mix up the base coat from yesterday with another highlight color, in this case Sandry Dust, just to sort of give it a neutral, lighter shade. This should work as a sort of a paler color, which will be a nice highlight.
Normally, this component would sit in a slot in the bulk carbine, but for the last talent, I need to make some adjustments. I compared the scopes against the last talent's
There are a lot of leather pouches, and they're mostly on Shrike. Tested on an out-of-the-way item like his back pouch.
Until I was happy with the fit. At which point, I could put the additional scopes in place to the right-hand side of the existing scope. My thinking here was these scopes would offer different visibility across the light spectrum, as well as being preset to shorter range engagements should things get up close and personal. Whilst attaching these scopes, I also removed the small wire from the current scope with my clippers and then flattened out the remaining surface using my knife. With the adjustment to the rifle completed, I could continue to assemble the rest of the miniature, with the exception of the head and the backpack. For the next customization, I wanted to reflect an aspect of Tyler's personality. While the Raptors are one of the more pragmatic chapters and less prone to things like trophies and trinkets, I could imagine Tyler being a collector of one particular thing: the trigger fingers of those he's bested in sniper duels. To create a place to mount these digit-based trophies, I took some thin copper wire and bent it around the handle of a file to achieve a uniform curved shape. This loop was then clipped away and then superglued to the last talent's power pack. The fingers were sourced from a couple of places. For a more humanoid-looking finger, I took an arm from the Crypt Core set. Having long, spread-out fingers made it much easier to cut away individual digits. Once I'd removed a couple, I glued these to the pouch, just below the wire. For some Renegade Space Marine fingers, I grabbed the left arm from a Mark IV Space Marine kit and carefully cut away and separated the fingers from each other using my knife. I cleaned this up a little and glued them to the pouch too. Next up was the head. Being a sniper is a risky business, and while Talis is among the best, he only got to that position by learning from a few mistakes. The biggest of these resulted in him losing his eye and most of the right side of his face. Luckily, he survived and now sports some chrome upgrades, so to reflect this, I took one of the Iron Hands bionic heads from their Primus upgrade sprue. As Eliminator's heads don't use the normal ball and socket joints of other Space Marines, I need to make some trims to the base of his neck in order for it to fit properly. One of the final changes was to the backpack. Now this is something that will be repeated across the whole kill team. Instead of using their standard backpack, I instead gave them each an infiltrator pack instead. The small aerials on each of these would represent boosted short-range communications that allow the kill team members to communicate over larger distances. In addition to this, I also added one of the Eliminator ammo pouches to the pack too. I needed to make a few trims to allow the pouch to fit, but this attached nicely and will be the start of the tactical aspect that the whole kill team would be given. In addition to the pack, I also added a knife. These were from the Incursor kit, and I just needed to separate the pair and clean up the edges. This was then glued next to the ammo pouch. Now, this particular set of equipment probably isn't easily accessible to Tiles himself, but when operating behind enemy
That really
lines,
is the only
I
leather on
imagine
this
squad
guy,
members
huh? Just that
would
one
need to
pouch.
carry enough equipment to last them throughout the mission. So these pouches and weapons would be used by all the squad members, rather than just Tiles himself. So, with Tiles completed, I could move on to the squad's leader, Ceres Corvaden. Ceres is also an Eliminator Sergeant, which in game terms will mean he can be dishing out damage whilst being kept out of harm's way, benefiting from his leader ability all the while. I began by removing the parts required to build the Eliminator Sergeant from the set before cleaning up the components. As I was planning on using a non-Eliminator head here, I need to make some room for it, so I used my knife to remove the small, squared-off lump of plastic that sat in the rear half of the neck joints. Removing this before assembly is much easier to do, but once I was done, I glued together the torso, legs, and right arm holding the sniper rifle. Being the kill team's leader, I needed something that would allow Ceres' model to reflect in coordinating the squad's actions. The obvious choice was a pointing arm, but I ultimately settled on using the comms arm from the Incursor kit. This arm was perfect because not only did it fit nicely in with the at-ease pose of this particular model, but it was also a Phobos armor, so that helped match up with the Eliminator's base armor. This was glued to the left shoulder, and While I was initially concerned that it would clash against the rifle, it lined up nicely with no adjustments required. Finally, a Phobos shoulder pad, like those from the Reaver or a Cursor kit, was glued on too. For the head, I wanted something that would reflect age and experience.
So that's pretty good. I could use the last of the brown for one final highlight as a dry brush. I guess that wouldn't be the worst thing ever. We've got it on our thing, so let's take a quick look. Let's try it. I mean, yeah, sure. It has basically no real practical effect. It doesn't really do anything. Okay. So we can highlight the white, but I'm not a huge fan of that. I'll mix up a really thin white and then try it. And then I think that's it. Oh, his claw. Yeah. There's like some lightning effects, so this will also double for that. We can try to use this as a lightning effect. Not a big fan, but we'll try. Let's do a test. Oh, that's not bad. It's got a little pop, not a lot. Fuck.
experience. I've had this Custodian's Warden head in my bits box for a while and thought it would be the perfect time to use it. The stoic expression, coupled with the hair and beard style, all combined to give an air of authority to this leader model. To attach, I just needed to trim out the bottom of the ball joint to allow it to fit in the neck of the Eliminator. If you've seen my Void Signs guide, then you will already be aware that I'm a big fan of Space Marines having a more realistic equipment loadout. With most Space Marines seemingly carrying only 2 magazines of bolter ammunition, at most, I wanted my kill team to look adequately equipped. This meant pouches, and lots of them. Luckily, the kits I was using for this kill team, the Incursors and the Eliminators, all come with plenty. I added some pouches from the Eliminator kit to the legs before cutting up a 4-pack with my knife. After cleaning them up, I then proceeded to glue 2 of these to the shoulder pad before adding in some grenades for good measure. Like before, I used an infiltrator backpack along with the remaining 2 pouches and a holstered bolt pistol. For both Eliminators, I decided to keep their backpacks separate to make painting their cloaks much easier. The next kill team member was Nevaeh Moradis, the Reaver Sergeant Combat Specialist. Having a healthy number of close combat attacks serves as a good counterpoint to the Eliminators in the team. As such, I removed the parts needed to build a Reaver from its sprue. In order to free up some space for the extra equipment, before I assembled the torso, I used my knife to carefully shave away the small symbol from the chest.
Maybe the lightning on this thing.
Once done, I could glue together the torso and the legs. As I wanted to equip Nevaeh with a bolt carbine while still leaning into that combat specialist aspect, I needed to attach the bolter to his person rather than having him carrying it in one hand. To do this, I took the shoulder pad from the Incursor kit that would normally be used along with the horizontal computer part. With my clippers, I then carefully cut away the shoulder pad and used my knife to clean and smooth things out again. This left me with a bolt carbine and a strap. But before I attached the bolter, I glued on one of the Reaver combat knife arms, along with an Incursor arm that was also equipped with a knife. This resulted in an undeniably combat-ready Reaver. With the arms in place, I just needed to add a magazine to the bolter. As I was planning on adding this to the rear of the model, I needed to make sure that I didn't make it too bulky. Luckily, Reaver carbines only come with an iron sight, so this wouldn't look hard at all. I took one of the Oculus carbine magazines, clipped away the scope, trimmed it back, and then glued it in place to complete the bolter's appearance. Next, I just needed to decide where to place the bolter. Having slung over one shoulder would have been tricky as I didn't have much space here, so I took some inspiration from one of the backpack-mounted rifles in the Eliminator set. I started by attaching the usual infiltrated backpack, and once in place, I could test the fit of the bolter. It fitted nicely for the most part, but the strap did need to be clipped shorter before it could be glued into place. I really wanted to emphasize Nevaeh's combat specialism, and I thought the best way to do this was to just add more knives. Dipping into my Imperial Guard bits box, I retrieved 2 of the equipment packs. Using my knife, I carefully cut away the scabbard part of each one and cleaned them up using my own knife, removing the small cross guards in the process. Once done, these were both mounted to the chest. While they were much too small for primary scale bodies, they were the perfect size to represent throwing knives. This addition of extra equipment was then continued. I added some extra grenades to the chest and a Tempestus Sign ammo holster to the leg. An Eliminator ammo pouch was also added to the backpack alongside a 5th and final knife taken from the Incursors. To finish off Nevaeh, I just needed a head. For this, I chose one from the Eliminator set rather than a Reaver head. The Eliminator's heads are great for this kind of hyper-tactical styled Space Marines, as they featured various arrangements of night vision goggles, masks, and hoods. For this particular Reaver, I chose to use one with the bald head and the goggles, as I thought this completed the crazed knife fighter look that I had so far built up. To get this to properly fit into the Reaver neck, however, I did need to make some slight trimming with the knife before finally gluing it into place. Next up, we had my Intercessor Sergeant, Cathorn Osmoso. I intended to field him either as an Intercessor Sergeant or an Assault Intercessor Sergeant, but either way, he would be armed with a chainsword, so I chose to base the model on the Assault Intercessors. I removed the relevant components to build an Assault Intercessor from the sprue and cleaned them up, but before I assembled anything, I decided to remove the Aquila from his chest. I used my knife to carefully shave and trim back the chest until it was a smooth, flat surface, perfect for mounting extra pouches to. Cathorn would be carrying a bolt pistol alongside his chainsword, so I chose to use mag chain arc from the Assault Intercessor kit. But first I need to build a silencer. I began with some 2mm thick plastic rod. I clipped this down to about 6mm in length and made sure that each end was nice and flat using my knife and file. With my pin vise, I then drilled 2 holes into one end, one directly down the center of the silencer and the other across the silencer. This would create both the inner barrel and the muzzle brake.
It's kind of doing
mimicking the appearance of the Eliminator's rifle.
like nothing. It's just like it's too thin. I don't know. Let me use this as a feather highlight for now, and then I'll come back in and just do a silver highlight on the claws for the blue. I'm going to do a tiny highlight on this guy's purity seals, which I did not highlight yesterday.
In order to add the silencer to the bolt pistol, I first had to remove the existing muzzle. This was done carefully with my clippers, and then I trimmed flat the spot that it had previously sat. Once removed, the new silencer could be glued into place. Following this, I could attach both the arms as well as some shoulder pads. Now, instead of using the original pads here, I instead chose to grab some of the smaller profile Phobos pads instead. This would help Cathorn to fit in a little easier with the other Phobos Marines in the squad. Taking advantage of that extra chest space, I then glued on a pouch and some grenades from the Reaver kit. As per usual, I added another infiltrator pack to the model before adding a knife and a pouch to it. Once the pack was in place, I took one of the belt-mounted chainswords from the Assault Intercessor set and glued this just below it. This not only helped with bulking out the loadout, but it also ticked the what you see is what you get aspect of kill team members. Before I added the head, I decided to add some obligatory pouches. I started with the Incursor pouch pack and made a horizontal cut. The 2 larger pouches were also separated before the edges were smoothed out with the knife. The smaller pouches were then added to the Intercessor Sergeant's left shoulder, and one of the larger pouches was glued to the right. Finally, another Eliminator head was used, and like before, I just needed to make a quick trim. So far, Cathorn was the only non-specialist in the squad, so there weren't really any specific themes I was going for here, other than just the same pragmatic style that the other members had. As such, if I was looking to add additional generic members to the team, then it would be this template that I would follow. And so I came to the final member of the kill team, Rezan Septin. This Intercessor Comm Specialist was built from the regular Intercessor kit, but, like with Cathorn, I set about removing the chest sequela using my knife and a file. Once this was done, I assembled the torso and the legs together. For this particular model, I planned on having both of his arms occupied with comms-related duties, but he still needs to be carrying his bolt rifle. Fortunately, the Intercessor kit comes with a right arm holding a pistol with a bolt rifle slung over the shoulder. This was almost perfect. I didn't want the arm to be holding a pistol though, so I carefully removed the bolt from the shoulder by cutting away the strap as close to the arm as possible, before cleaning up the cut as much as I could. Once the bolter was free of the arm, I began to remove the muzzle as, like before, I wanted to add a silencer. Again, I used the same 2mm thick plastic rod, which was cut to about 6mm in length and had 2 holes drilled into it. Finally, it was glued to the main stock of the bolt rifle. I wanted Rezan to appear to be communicating information to his squad mates, and for this I used one of the right arms from the Intercessor kit that featured a box grill in the forearm. This was glued in place and positioned this just below his chin. Once the arm was in place, the bolter was then fixed beneath it. In order for Rezan to be passing information about enemy positions, he needed to be able to actually spot these enemies, which is where the binoculars from the Eliminator kit came in. Normally, these would be attached to a Phobos arm, but the shoulders on these were sculpted specifically for the Eliminator's camo clothes. So I needed to use an empty left hand from the Intercessor kit. I clipped away the hand at the wrist before using my knife to ensure that this joint was nice and flat. The binocular hand was then glued into place without the need for any further adjustments, and then once dried, I could attach the arm to the torso and attach another Phobos shoulder pack to it. For the pack, I again turned to the Infiltrator set, but instead of just using the smaller aerials, I instead opted for the larger sensor array. I imagine him as the hub of the unit, relaying messages between the squad members and communicating with command elements outside the team, which these beefier aerials and satellite dish will help to flesh out. But even though he is carrying the extra radio equipment, Rezan was still given the obligatory extra pouches to hang from his power pack before it was glued to his torso. So by this stage in the build, you're probably already able to guess what my next step was. That's right, handy storage bits, which is from now on is exactly how I will refer to any superfluous repositories that I decide to add in my future conversions. Like before, I cut, trimmed, and distributed these extra containers across the Space Wings person. Which brought me nicely to the final task, adding another Eliminator head to the body. The width around the bottom of the head was adjusted accordingly before being glued into place. And with that, the final piece of the kill team was completed. It just needed to be based and painted, which left me with these. And here we have the full Primaris kill team painted in the colours of the Raptors. Now normally my conversion guides only focus on one miniature, but at the time of publishing this video, my channel is about to turn 7 years old. So I thought a slightly more adventurous video like this would be a nice way to mark the occasion. It was also a great way to push myself to actually build a playable kill team force that I can use and hopefully build upon in future videos too. So if you enjoyed this kill team kit bashing video, please do leave me a like along with your suggestions for future members or other kill team builds you'd like to see me tackle in the future. And with that, the final thing to say is a massive thank you to my supporters. Currently, my top supporters on Patreon are Stuart Smith, Jeremy Cow, Jake, Douglas Wilson, and Daniel Dowling. So a big thank you to you guys, and if you also support me on Patreon, buy me a coffee or you just use my affiliates links, then your help is what keeps this channel alive, and it's what allows me to build these different kinds of conversions for you. If you'd like to help me out, then you can check out the description for all of those relevant links. So until next time, thanks for watching, and goodbye.
Oh, neat. I'm a supporter. Look at that. Very cool.
Welcome to Century Age of Ashes. Engage in multiplayer airborne skirmishes where the line between life and death is drawn with fire. The early access version features 3 playable classes, all with a distinct power and 2 additional abilities that you can select depending on your strategy. Phantoms can cloak in an instant to escape a chase or set up a nice kill. Use the blast to disrupt your enemy's movement or set up explosive traps with the mine. Wind guards shield their teammates from harm by rushing to their side. They can use the blast or deploy poisonous smokes to drive off foes and cover a tactical retreat. Relentless marauders mark and track down their fleeing enemies. Use gusts to escape projectiles or numb your prey with impairing frost bolts. Combine these various classes to rule the skies in 3 exclusive game modes. In Carnage, each point you grant your team by killing an enemy increases your bounty level.
And for the armor, I decided that I would use Games Workshop's Caliban Green as a base. Again, I'm just blocking in colours for this part, trying to figure out what's going to blend where. This arm's quite awkward as the muscle textures and the armour, they all blend together. But at the moment, we're just blocking in those colours to get us started. As you can see here, I've already started the process. I'm going to go over all the metal parts with Games Workshop's Mournfang Brown. This is always a good base when doing a Nurgle model, and anything with metal parts for Nurgle. You can also use the Mournfang as a wash when you go back over your work as well, and be blended back together. After Mournfang, we're going to use Scale 75's Mern Green. If you don't have the Scale 75 set, I do recommend them highly. They're really good for blending and glazing. And we're going to cover most of the Caliban Green that we've done, just leaving a little bit in the shaded areas. Once this is all built up, it should give us a really nice blend. After that, we're still using Mern Green, but we're going to add Undead Flesh by Scale 75 into that mix. Now, you can obviously do this the Games Workshop way, going from the Death Guard Green up to Nurgling Green, if those are the colours that you have access to. Now, these are 3 different washes, and you've probably seen me do this before on other videos. One of them is Athonian Camo Shade, one of them is Athonian Camo Shade and Agrax, and one of them is Agrax and Reckland. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply them to the model as the model blends in different directions, has different colour tones to it. I'm going to use those to blend in different things. So the Athonian...
Alright, all I'm doing now is I'm just highlighting various portions of the model with a very fine chrome. I did that on the claws, which looks good, it pops. Doing some very, very small highlights in a few targeted areas just to sort of give the metal a bit of a pop. Yeah. But honestly, at this point, we're done. The models are really done. I'm going to do the bevels, and on this one, I'm going to put down a little bit of some sort of static grass, and then we just varnish, and we're done. So where are we at? 1 hour 2. We're going to call it 1.25. Yeah. Nice. We do have to do something red on this, guys. We have to highlight this staff. It's a little flat. I don't know. What am I going to highlight your staff with, my friend? Something red. And something kind of bright red. It also has to be kind of thicker. I guess I could use Mephiston. And ooh, this is kind of thin for Mephiston. Don't know how that happened. Must have thinned it out. Let me grab another bottle. don't know. Fortunately, this red up at the top is really thick, which will be great for a quick dry brush. We also have this Evil Sun Scarlet, which will be good for a quick dry brush too. I hate when that happens. It's a little wet at the bottom. What the? Let's get rid of that. It's weird. I mean, it's working. It's just kind of subtle. Fuck me. And it's flicking red paint on the model. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to target those individual cells. I skip the dry brush. I'll just make it a true highlight. And on this guy's scroll, which is bugging me a little, I'm going to give him a little bit of a light tone. That's better. Yeah, that evens that out a bit. Good. All right. Now, on this guy, we're going to target these individual bits. Which is not as bad as it seems because they're just in a line. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. All right, let's do final assembly and bevels. This part always makes me a little bit nervous. Because if you make a mistake, it's pretty bad. Which way does your head face? Yeah, that's about right. Cool. And then for your back, can I just mount? Yeah, let's try it. I don't like to use super glue if I can avoid it at this point because of the scarring. Plastic technically does melt paint because paint technically has plastic in it. So if this holds, it'll be fine. All right, we're going to do both of your bubbles in black. And we're going to give you a little bit of something. These are kind of my flavor right now. These middle and tufts. So maybe just one big one on the back. Click. And maybe one small one up front too. Yeah, it feels okay. Now it technically covers up a tiny gap. It's weird. What is that? Just gonna leave it. All right, black bevel. The brush is pretty much done skis. Fucking piece of shit. Just needs some more time to cure, that's all. God damn it. Nice. All right, we will varnish off camera. That'll take just a couple minutes. That'll be that.